Hello, this is Sarah Braasch. Welcome back to my channel. So I just wanted to do a quick impromptu video. I just did a video about the reverse racism incident on the University of Virginia campus. But what I really want to do a video about now is how all of these, I guess I shouldn't say all of these, I should temper my speech. I will say how there have been instances of super hyper-privileged Africans coming to the United States, especially on elite university campuses like Yale University or the University of Virginia, and usurping, or shall we say culturally misappropriating, the U.S. Black social justice movement for their own personal gain. And in the process, usually perpetrating race and hate crime hoaxes for their own personal gain, which end up destroying whichever elements of the U.S. Black social justice movement. Okay, what happened on at Yale University, on the Yale University's campus during the Living or Napping While Black hate crime hoax at Yale University? A super hyper, ostensibly, I don't know anyone's life. That's kind of the point. No one knows my life. You don't know my fucking life. You don't know what I've been through. Just because I'm a Yale University graduate student, a Yale University PhD candidate in philosophy. You think you know my life? Just because I'm a Yale University PhD candidate? You know jack shit about my life. Just because I have white skin and I happen to be a Yale University PhD candidate. Hint, hint, New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, NBC News, assholes. The View, assholes. Trevor Noah and The Daily Show on Comedy Central, assholes. Okay, I'm gonna collect myself. But what my point is that it is fucking shocking to me. It is fucking shocking to me that U.S. Black social justice activists, Black Lives Matter, the Living While Black movement, that you're absolutely fine with ostensibly super privileged Africans coming to elite universities in the U.S., including Yale University, and usurping your movement, culturally misappropriating your movement, culturally misappropriating the grievances of U.S. Black persons, the U.S. Black communities, for their own personal gain, Do you think Lolade Siyonbola gives a fucking shit about the Black Lives Matter movement in the U.S.? Do you think Lolade Siyonbola gives a fucking shit about black people in the U.S.? She misappropriated your movement. She usurped your movement for her own personal gain. She perpetrated a hate crime hoax in the name of your movement, in the name of the Black Lives Matter movement, in the name of the Living While Black movement on Yale University's campus for her own personal gain, to make herself out to be something akin to a Rosa Parks, something akin to a civil rights icon. She actually, in multiple national and international news outlets, had the fucking temerity, had the fucking gall, had the fucking audacity to invoke Sandra Bland. To invoke Sandra Bland. Do you want to know who has actually been at the receiving end of multiple gun barrels by Texas State Highway Patrolmen? Not Lolade Siyonbola. Me. I have been in that situation. I have been in that situation. I have been in that situation. Just like Sandra Bland. For Lolade Siyonbola to invoke Sandra Bland's memory, to try to make herself out to be some kind of fucking civil rights icon, is fucking disgusting. It's fucking disgusting. I do not understand why U.S. black social justice activists would allow super hyper privileged Africans who are studying at elite universities to usurp your movement for their own personal gain. For their own personal gain. They don't give a shit about you. They don't give a shit about you. They are doing this for themselves. They are doing this for themselves. I'm the civil rights activist. I'm the lifelong human and civil rights activist who was working with the Justice Collaboratory at Yale Law School on the issues of police brutality and implicit bias. I'm the one who organized the Philosophy and Mass Incarceration Conference with Jason Stanley at Yale University. I'm the one who's not only a prison abolitionist, I'm a punishment abolitionist, largely because of the disparate impact on persons and communities of color that those social institutions have. My point is, and I don't know, it's not entirely clear to me, this woman at the University of Virginia, who seems to have perpetrated something of a race hoax, who stood up and gave her quote-unquote public service announcement in their newly formed multicultural center on the University of Virginia campus, and who said that there were just too many white bodies in the multicultural center, who was seemingly ostensibly advocating for racial segregation, public segregation. But my point is that I don't know. She's very well. She clearly indicates that she is the child, this woman who did this, and I do not want anyone to harm her in any way, shape, or form. I do not want anyone to mob her. I will not identify her. But she seems to have indicated before making her Twitter account private, I'm sure because she was getting mobbed, including, I have no doubt that she was getting death threats. I have no doubt that she was getting threats of violence, including sexual violence, just as I did. But before that happened, she seems to have indicated that she is the child of African immigrants from Nigeria. It's not entirely clear if she's a U.S. citizen or if she is a Nigerian citizen. But regardless of that, I just want to say to the U.S. Black social justice activists, stop allowing super and hyper privileged African persons to usurp your movement, to culturally misappropriate your movement for their own personal gain. That is what happened during the living or napping while black hate crime hoax at Yale University. Lolade Siyonbola and Jean-Louis Renaissance usurped the U.S. Black social justice movement, usurped the Living While Black movement for their own personal gain. They tried to make themselves out to be some kind of civil rights activists, and they used it to wreak their vengeance upon me because they imagined that they had some delusional personal vendetta against me. They falsely accused me of having perpetrated a racist hate crime comparable to a lynching. That's right, comparable to a lynching. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to call out to the U.S. Black social justice activists, do not allow these African persons, super privileged, hyper privileged persons from Africa to falsely usurp the U.S. Black social justice movement, the Living While Black movement, the Black Lives Matter movement for their own personal gain. They don't give a shit about you. Do you think Lolade Siyonbola gives a shit about you? She doesn't give a shit about you. She's in Cambridge. She's at Cambridge now. She doesn't give a shit about you. She doesn't give a shit about black people in the U.S. Do you know who gives a shit about black people in the U.S.? I do. I do. And I always have. And you know who else gives a shit about Africans? Me. When I was at Nice in Paris, France, do you know how I spent a lot of my time? Sitting for hours and hours and days in government offices with African women, immigrant women and their children, including Muslim immigrant women and their children, to make sure that they wouldn't be discriminated against during the visa application process in France. I don't just give a shit about black people in the U.S. I give a shit about black people in Europe. I give a shit about black people in Africa. Do you know who doesn't? Lolade Siyonbola. Do you know who she gives a shit about? Lolade Siyonbola. So I just wanted to tell the U.S. Black social justice activists and the U.S., stop allowing these assholes from Africa to usurp your movement for their own personal gain. They don't give a shit about you. They are perfectly happy to perpetrate race and hate crime hoaxes for their own personal gain. And they don't give a shit who dies in the process. Me included. Very obviously. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. I love you all so much. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Donate to my legal fund. My PayPal me and GoFundMe links are below. A bunch of links will be below. I love you all so much. Thank you so much.